Hello and welcome to Nurture Academy. Today we are going to learn about solutions. So let's get started. First of all, what is a solution? A solution is something which will contain a solute and one solvent. Many times people are confused that solute should always be a solid or solvent should always be a liquid. But that is not true. We can have solute and solvent in any given physical state. That means that solute can be solid, liquid, or a gas. Same way, the solvent can also be solid, liquid, or gas. Then we have to know what are the basic types of solutions. So we have two types of solutions: homogeneous solutions, which have same composition throughout the volume. Okay, for example, salt water. And then we have heterogeneous solutions, which do not have uniform appearance or composition throughout the volume of the solution. For example, sand water. Some sand will settle down in the bottom, some sand will be still floating on the top of the solution. So that will be non-uniform composition. Okay. Next thing we have to learn about how a solute dissolved in a solvent. So, here we are having one very basic rule in chemistry, that is like dissolves like. We can also learn this by saying that polar substances, they dissolve in polar liquids, and non-polar substances, they dissolve in non-polar substances. Now, what do you mean by polar substances? Polar substances are those which have permanent dipole moment, and non-polar substances are those which do not have dipole moment. We can even try one question based on this. Let us try to solve one question based upon polar and non-polar solvents. So let's say somebody asks us, if I am having ethylene glycol and I am having hexane, out of both of them, which will dissolve better in water? Now I have to think about that ethylene glycol is a polar molecule. It has dipole moment and it has polarity because of the OH books. But hexane, on the other hand, does not have any dipole moment. So that is why ethylene glycol will be more soluble in water as compared to your hexane. Next is, as I've already discussed, we can have any solute, any physical state of solute and any physical state of the solvent. Let us discuss the case of if any gas is soluble in water or any given aqueous solution, then what will be the effect of temperature on the solubility of the gas. Now, this answer for that, we have to think about Le Chatelier's principle, which states that whenever there is an equilibrium and we increase the temperature, the equilibria always shift in the direction which is endothermic by nature. But you can see from the given equation that whenever a gas is soluble in water, then the reaction is in forward direction, it is exothermic. That is why what will happen if you increase the temperature, the solubility of the gas will start to decrease in water. Second effect we have to study is effect of pressure on the solubility of the gases. Again, we will use Le Chatelier principle, which says that when we increase the pressure, the equilibria will shift to the direction where the number of moles is less. You can very well see from figure A and figure B that in figure B, the number of moles of the gas is lesser as compared to in the A. So what will happen if we increase the pressure, the solubility of a gas will increase inside any given liquid. We can also understand this given effect based upon Henry's law, which says that solubility of a gas is directly proportional to the partial pressure of the gas, where the constant of proportionality is Kh. Now, in this case, you must have noticed this very, very commonly. Whenever we open any soda can or anything, suddenly because of reduce in the pressure, the gas start to bubble out. So that is the another example of the solubility of a gas and the relation of pressure with that. We can also solve numerical problems based upon Henry's law, as we have taken one example. We are given partial pressure of the gas, and we are also given the value of Henry's law constant. All we have to calculate is the solubility of the gas. So as we know, solubility is equal to Henry's law constant multiplied by the partial pressure. We just multiply and we get the value for the solubility of the given gas. Next topic we have is known as colligative properties. Colligative properties are those properties which depend only on the number of the solute particles, not on the nature of the solute particles. So that makes them very special. We can do an experimental setup and very easily we can figure out how much amount of anything is dissolved in any given liquid, and also we can find out the molar mass of the unknown thing whichever we have dissolved in any given liquid. So first colligative property we are having is known as vapor pressure lowering. This means that, as you can see in this diagram, the blue dots show only the solvent molecules. So when we heat any solvent molecules in the pure state, then they are going into the vapor state. But when I add some amount of solute, which is shown by the red dots in this figure B, we can see that the solute particles are not letting the solvent particles go into the vapor state. So in turn, number of vapors reduces. Number of vapors reduces means vapor pressure of the solvent decreases. The expression for reducing in the vapor pressure is delta P1 divided by P1 naught, where delta P is the lowering of the vapor pressure, P1 naught is the vapor pressure of the solvent in its pure state when nothing was mixed into that, and that should be equal to the mole fraction of the solute. X2 is the mole fraction of solute, okay, not solvent. And we know that mole fraction is equal to given number of moles divided by total number of moles. So the numerical portion we will do in our next video. The link I will send in the description box. Let's move on to the next colligative property. Next colligative property we are having is known as boiling point elevation. So it is actually very much related to our elevation in the lowering of the vapor pressure, because boiling point is defined as the temperature at which vapor pressure becomes equal to atmospheric pressure. Let us say if we are having more vapor pressure of anything, and more vapor pressure means it will become equal to atmospheric pressure, right? And that thing's boiling point will be more. And if you are having less vapor pressure, then it will take a long time for that liquid to start boiling, because it will take a long time for the vapor pressure to become equal to atmospheric pressure. So as you can see in this given figure, the red dots, they show the solute particles which are being added to the solvent. So when you add solute particle, automatically the vapor pressure become lower. In turn, what happens is that if vapor pressure become lower, the boiling point will increase. The formula to calculate that is change in the boiling point is delta TB is equal to KB multiplied by small m. Now, small m is known as the molality of the solution. Similar to boiling point elevation, we have another property which is known as depression in the freezing point. So for depression in the freezing point, we can explain the same thing, okay? But instead of writing the relation as delta TB is equal to KB into small m, we will just, instead of B, we will say F. So delta TF will be equal to KF multiplied by the molality. That will be your depression in the freezing point. Both boiling point and freezing point can be explained on the basis of entropy also. See, when we are having a liquid and the liquid boils and become gas, then the entropy increases, and increase in the entropy means stability increases. But when the liquid already have some kind of solute particles in that, then the entropy is already there and the tendency to go into the vapor state becomes less. So that can also explain our lowering in the vapor pressure, which in turn leads to the elevation in the boiling point. Let us learn the another property, colligative property, which is osmosis, and which causes some kind of osmotic pressure. Now the definition of osmosis is movement of solvent particles from the region where the number of particles is more to the region where the number of particles is less. Now, as you can see on left hand side, the blue color dots are your solvent particle, let's say water, and the red color dots are your solute. Since we are having one semi-permeable membrane, which is shown by black dotted line, so only the water molecule, which is solvent, can go from left hand side to right hand side. So that phenomena is your normal osmosis. But usually when we are trying to purify the water, that time we do not want the pure water to go and get mixed into the dirty water. So usually in our households, what we do is we apply some kind of pressure onto the another side, with the dirty water side where the number of particles of water is less. So much pressure we add so that the normal osmosis will start to go in the reverse direction. That type of water purifiers are also known as RO water purifiers, or reverse osmosis purifiers. Anyway, so that proves that whenever any solvent is trying to move through semi-permeable membrane, it kinds of exerts some kind of pressure onto the semi-permeable membrane. That pressure is a measure of your osmotic pressure, which is written as capital M R into T, where capital M is the molarity of the solution, R is known as gas constant, and T is the temperature. We have to remember one simple thing in here. Osmotic pressure is the most sensitive colligative property because it depends upon the molarity of the solution, while another three colligative property, they depend upon the molality of the solution. So this is the most sensitive property we are having. Next, we have to learn about, since we don't have any ideal solution, to be honest, so we will be dealing with the non-ideal solution. What can be an ideal solution is that when I mix that solution, there is no interaction between the solute and the solvent, or I can say that A interaction and BB interaction is equal to AB interaction. That type of solution will be known as my ideal solution. But in actual scenario, there are two types of non-ideal solution. Solutions which show positive deviation and solutions which show negative deviation. Now, positive deviation is shown by the solution for which the solute-solute interaction or the solvent-solvent interaction is more than solute-solvent interaction. We can learn it easily by saying that AA interaction or BB interaction is more than AB interaction. These type of solutions show positive deviation. And exactly opposite of that, if AB interaction is more than AA or BB, then it will be known as negative deviation from Raoult's law. Raoult's law is just the special case of your Henry's law. In terms of graph, it is easy to understand. So the first graph shows us ideal solution where the total pressure of the solution will be equal to partial pressure of the both constituents. But if you see positive deviation from Raoult's law, in that case, my total vapor pressure is much more than what I actually anticipated. So which is shown by the hyperbolic curve. And third type is the negative deviation from the Raoult's law, which is shown by the graph number 3. The effect of positive deviation from Raoult's law is, if any solution go positive deviation from Raoult's law, it will form minimum boiling azeotrope, and if any solution show negative deviation from Raoult's law, it will have the probability of forming maximum boiling azeotrope. Azeotropes are those solutions which are having constant boiling point. Next is, since these are non-ideal solutions, so how do I measure the value of the, how do I measure the deviation of the ideal behavior? So I can measure it in form of something known as Van't-Hoff factor I. Van't-Hoff factor will give me quantitatively how much my normal property has deviated when I add some kind of solute into my solvent, and it either show association or it show dissociation. So these are the formulas for my Van't-Hoff factor. So thank you for liking this video. Please do like, subscribe and share our videos. Thank you so much.